grab a seat if you haven't. We are so excited to be hosting Kyle L. White, our local Sycamore author. I am Sam Sunquist. I'm the Adult Services Manager, and I have received an email from Kyle a few months ago. It says, oh, hey, I'm a local artist. I've been wanting to do something for a community to get people out and involved with each other in the winter. I said, great, let me take a look at your stuff first. It's like, okay, I get it. Right. As soon as I saw it, I was like, yes, Kyle, we would love to host you. And I'm very excited. It's been a couple of months of planning between myself, Kyle, and Kelsey. She's our team lead here in the adult services. We've just tried to figure out the best way in between COVID protocols to have a sort of warm communal experience while being outdoors. So very pleased to have Kyle do a reading right now. Q&A, there'll be plenty of time afterwards. Take it away, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Have you all walked through the gallery yet? Or not? You're waiting to walk through. Well, yeah, thanks for coming. Thanks to the library for having me. Maybe I wouldn't be here if that was if you looked at that email and been like, you're never
Thank you
stepping
for being
foot.
challenging.
Yeah, thanks for saying yes. So they're great. Sam and Kelsey was so helpful from the library to say, oh yeah, let's try this thing and see what happens. So that's fun to work with imaginative people. And just was thinking as we're approaching winter and more COVID, what could we do that would help us reflect on winter, which I think is the best season for reflection and helps us get outdoors because we've been so cooped up. I'll read three pieces for you today. One will be from what's out in the gallery, and then two new things because I think COVID and winter are the best times to write. So maybe you disagree. You're not up here. So. All right, this one is called Do You See Your Neighbors in the Winter? Do you see your neighbors in the winter? The evidence suggests the houses are inhabited, a light in the window, a flutter in the curtains, the occasional set of tracks in the snow, garbage cans and recycling bins migrating in and out. Trails are cleared somehow, but not a glimpse of humans. Who knows what's going on over there? Thieves, infiltrators, coyotes. This winter, I sympathize with neighbors in those shocking news stories. The stories about the old man who's been found dead in his house, who's been dead for a year. The neighbors say stuff like, I think I saw him cutting the lawn a few months ago. Way to go, neighbors, we say. Everyone's appalled. Really, I mostly just feel better that I am not as slouchy a neighbor as they are. I wasn't sure up till now. Thanks, dead guy. But who knows, in this Midwest winter with 68 inches of snow and 40 below wind chills, maybe all my neighbors are dead. There is no way of knowing, really. But then, one above zero day, a sighting over the fence that divides us past the snowdrifts, Joe waves. Or what appears to be Joe. I'll take what I can get in case I get interviewed. I wave back. You still live there, I call. He waves. I still live here too, I call back. Don't forget, neighbor. So that one is in the gallery. And this whole gallery is based on a 2018 book called, what is it called? Winter and Scissors, 31 Small Daily Readings for Winter. And I just live like 2 blocks over here past the jail. And just walking in the winter is my favorite. I think it's the best time for reflecting or praying or just thinking and just watching these birds, these like chickadees and the sparrows in the trees. Like how do they make it in winter? And so that started this idea of like, okay, every day for 31 days, I'm just gonna write and think about this idea of winter cutting, like the wind cutting or it's so cold it cuts. And that's where that came from. Then these other 2 pieces are new. I'm working on a new book right now, and these are a few pieces from that. So this is called the Midwest Sneaky Shovelers Society. It's a letter. Dear anonymous shoveler, Thank you for clearing our driveway and sidewalk while we were gone and in below zero weather to boot. When my wife and I arrived back from the airport at 10:30 last night after visiting our daughter and son-in-law in North Carolina, we both rejoiced. Someone cleared the driveway. There is no greater Midwest love than to pick up one's shovel for one's friends. I won't start asking around as to who did this because it will inadvertently make people feel bad. Did you shovel my driveway, I asked? No, they say. Okay, then. One time I asked my sister if she had sent me a book I had received in the mail. Was it for my birthday, I asked? No, you jerk, she replied. I never sent you a book. I've learned my lesson about trying to uncover anonymous acts of kindness. But is this anonymous shoveling incident a blueprint for a way out of the season of isolating COVID and dividing politics? Maybe we're all sick of looking at each other and beyond sick of each other's sharp words. Maybe it's best for us all just to be quiet and unseen for a while and to secretly plot how we could meet the needs of our neighbors. If we all did it, would we go about wondering, was it him? Was it her? Probably not Paul, but maybe. Then instead of being suspicious about everyone and their threatening opinions, we would be suspicious in another way. Was it he who committed kindness against me? If so, now what? Anyway, thank you, Snow Angel, for your forethought and kindness. We are grateful for you. We won't be mad if you reveal yourself, then we can celebrate you and winter. Have I just opened this up to imposters? We'll let God be the judge. Warm regards. Have you guys had people shovel your walk while you're gone? You have? Yeah. You wish, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you might have a longer driveway, right, than most. Yeah. All right, then I'll leave you with this one before any question response. And this is kind of for the rest of your winter. Just the good of winter is stopping, reflecting, resting. And so this is called Upon Consultation with Box Turtles. Right now on this 10 below winter day, as I order more things online, recheck email and thumb through social media again, there are animals sleeping underground, underfoot, and inside trees. Trees that have shed their hard-won leaves before taking winter naps. In the economies of box turtles, bears, bees, sycamores, black walnuts, and chinkapin oaks, all more noteworthy than I, it's best to stop looking busy for a time. Can you imagine the dormant box turtle in his home, dormant for 5 months of the year, tossing and turning, worrying, I should have, if only I would have, what could have been? Of course you can't imagine it. The box turtle is quietly snoring in and out. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Yeah, so thanks for listening to those 3 pieces. Yeah, that's all I got. The rabbit and the postman.
Oh, yeah, that one.
Oh, yeah, I'll read that in a second. I don't know. Yeah. Number 17. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was probably the one thing there. All right, here's number 17 when you're out there. After the last snow, there are 2 sets of tracks in the powder. The mailman's cut east to west and the rabbit's cut north to south. The trails intersect in the middle of our front yard. Maybe the mailman came at his usual time, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and the rabbit kept his morning hours. Or maybe they ran into each other at the same time. Who knows? But if so, did they exchange small talk about the weather and exchange incoming and outgoing mail? Rabbit has been awaiting a subscription to Farmer's Almanac and news from his 216 siblings. Yeah, that's one of my favorites too. I don't know why. It's complete nonsense. Yeah, any questions? Or somebody told me that you shouldn't, when you speak to a group, you shouldn't say, does anybody have any questions? You should say, somebody asked me a question. Somebody asked me a question. Try it. Yeah. I've been writing since I was a little kid, and loved it, enjoyed it, loved English classes, and then was a journalism major in college, but it probably wasn't until I was about 40 where it was like, this is not just a hobby thing or a guilty pleasure. I come from a central Wisconsin, so it's like paper mill town. So being a writer was not like, was something that was never gonna pay any bills or looked upon. So I wish I would have started earlier, but 40 was when I started writing freelance. And then my goal was by 40 to have a book. And I remember being in Sycamore, just driving, and the publisher called me and said, we'd like to publish your book. And I said, pull over, and because I was pretty teary-eyed at that point, like, oh, okay, here we are. So yeah, so that kind of probably, I'm 54 now, so probably the last 14 years intensely and intently. So yeah, do you write?
I like to talk to
Do you?
It's not at your level.
Well, I'm glad that you write. And this is the time to write. Somebody else asked me a question.
You really get on speed first time.
49.
Yeah, being from central Wisconsin, I was like, what the heck? Yeah, I went in college. I went one time, but I had a ligament problem, and so I really couldn't do anything. And then it wasn't until, yeah, it was exactly that story. And I was terrible, and I was embarrassed. I'll never speak again. Yeah.
Were you up there by Wausau?
Yeah, so my brother lives in Wausau. So do you go to Rib Mountain or whatever? Whatever it is now.
I just thought it's like one of the lights.
Oh yeah, so Wausau, because everything's on the Wisconsin River, right? So which they say is the hardest working river in the world because of all the factories and stuff. It's super cool. And so we're just south of, I grew up south of there at Stevens Point, but all along there was Wausau, Wisconsin, or Stevens Point, Wisconsin Rapids. That's all like paper mill. But Nina was there. That's part of Wisconsin Rapids. Yeah, but all of us have kind of collapsed and bought and sold, and it's really wrecked a lot of that area.
Pull that inspiration from that area.
I think so. You know, well, I think when you're like a kid, you're like, I can't wait to get out of here. But then you move, especially as a Packer fan, your parents are like, oh, things are pretty good. Yes. But yeah, then you kind of want staying right. Where did you go?
So I grew up in Marvin.
Oh.
We had a family cabin.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
I've been up there a few times with my dog.
Yeah.
We usually go up there every summer. We just love it up there. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
it feels like you're kind of, there's this, at some point they call it like the tension line, right? Like
Yeah.
north of the
It's
tension
fast.
line, or there's
Yeah.
something landmark or whatever that is like, oh, okay, that's behind me.
As long as you're out by the bell. Oh.
Yeah, right, yeah. Once you get past it. Yeah. Any other things any questions you have?
Did the neighbor ever come forward?
Oh, as to who shoveled our
Yeah.
thing? No, because it's the first time I've like stopped asking. I have some ideas, and I caught another guy. Snowblower driveway, and it's kind of embarrassing. You go out there and he's trying to do some secret thing and trying to talk to him. Pretty awkward. He probably should. I have ideas, but no, nobody came forward or whatever. And I'm kind of glad. Yeah, sorry.
So the 31 days that you said to write.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it was kind of just reflections, those 31 days. So some of them were, I don't know exactly what poetry is. I think it's like is it metaphor or what, in terms of structure, like it's probably, if there's a structure there, there's some loose stuff. One of my favorite poets is this guy, and there's this, I don't know, thread of poetry called prose poetry, which I've never figured out what that means, but it's some kind of, there's no form to it. It's a paragraph and it ends in, it's reflective or it's observational and then ends kind of in mystery. And I feel like that's when I felt like I started writing, was like, there was a guy, Lewis Jenkins, who died, but he was a Duluth poet, and he wrote, I was listening to something on NPR, and this guy came on and read these things, and I'm like, that's what I want to do. Like, that guy's funny, and he's clever, and he makes you think. And so, so if it's poetry, it's probably something like that. There's a few haiku in there that are, even haiku, I think, is probably something that's more nature centered. So my haiku is cheating, but it's still, but it has, there's a, you're playing with it at least.
Did you have days that in that 31 days that you struggled with a reflection or?
Yeah, I'm sure, but it's like you have a job and there's an end in sight of it, and it's winter, which I love. So a lot of it's kind of natural observation. So it was fun. I didn't think I was going to do anything with it, but there was a thread there. So yeah, that was really enjoyable. So I think like, or if you're struggling with writing or something, it's like, have a project that you want to do. Like, if you, okay, for 31 days, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to write a book, or I'm going to write a, chapbook or something of poetry. I'm going to write 20 things, because then you have a goal and you're shooting for something. Then you can kind of see the threads that are going through those things. Like the book that I'm working on right now, I put it all in Google Doc, which I've never done before. It's usually like, oh, here's something, here's something, here's something. But now I can read through this thing and I can see what's missing here. I can see the thread, because I think writing, I don't think is something where I have this great well of stuff that I'm drawing from, but it feels like it's kind of like hunting rabbits or something, or like something will run across your path that's outside of me. And so if I stick to it, then the chances that a rabbit's going to run from you is a lot higher. So if that answers that question. Yeah, there's days it was harder. And so maybe some of those haiku were cheats, like to kind of, prime the pump a little bit, like, okay, like 575. You write, Jan? Yeah.
I wish.
31 days. You're not gonna get it. Jan and Robin are here with the artwork and stuff. So check for your stuff. Any other questions at all that you have? Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
I think about this as a mom with two kids in school,
Yeah.
and they have their English and writing lessons. Do you start off with a blank page? And because it's always that beginning that's hard to get started.
Yeah.
That blank page that you're looking at.
Oh, like if Emma's
you're,
writing for
you
a
have to
class or
write,
something.
yeah, like you have to put together an essay.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
that beginning that can be really hard. So when you write, how do you get started?
Yeah.
Like, do you start with a blank page in the beginning, or?
Probably at some point, right? But I think it's like, I always keep a sketchbook in my pocket or carry it around with me. And so this is different than having to write an essay for a class or something, but some place where somebody calls it like your mind outside of your mind, where you can kind of store these things. And so to have like a piece of paper, sketchbook or something, like where you're writing down ideas and then you kind of draw from those. Reading other people's stuff primes the pump for me, like Lewis Jenkins, people like that. When in terms of an essay, I don't know, maybe it's reading other people's stuff on the topic. And I do think, and this was like, I used to get really mad at myself for like, if I had to, I worked in the church for a long time, so sermons or writing whatever, I used to get mad at myself because I'm like, oh, I'm procrastinating. I'm not writing anything until the last minute. But I think 80% of what you're doing is thinking. And so if I can go walking, or I think get away from distractions, go for a winter walk, stuff comes. So I think it's there. So I don't know if that helps you write a say, but that's probably what I would say.
Art or is it?
Between those things.
One thing first, the drawing or the writing, or has it always been something you've dabbled in?
Yeah, I think it's both, like, which is not an answer to your question. I remember drawing as a kid in kindergarten. I remember vividly the pictures that I was drawing at that time. But I was always like, we were talking about comics, like just that really prime the pump, and so pictures and text combined were really important to me, and so.
So you've been sketching, you said you really started to write at 40.
Yeah.
But you've been sketching all along as.
Yes.
Certainly do.
Yeah, so in high school, I was the cartoonist for our high school newspaper for 4 years, and then in college, I was the cartoonist for our college newspaper for 4 years. So the combination of text and illustration was always part of that. So you'll see it in some of like my prints and stuff, or maybe in my books a little bit. Yeah, I don't know if I can separate those. Take one last question. So there has to be one, right?
In your poetry, it seems like you like to personify animals. At least that's what I've noticed, and you're very inspired by forest, nature. I'd just like to know a little bit more about, is it a way for you to connect with people more, or do you even realize it's something you have done?
What you've done. I think
Like with bear, like
Yeah.
that's not really a bear, it's really you.
it's you. Yeah, that's right, it's you. So this is I was telling somebody, who was I talking? Yeah, these, but and they all have these scientific notations like figure 1, 2, and there's 10 of them. There's 10 of these drawings that maybe before COVID or right start of COVID, maybe before, but winter anyway. And I just started drawing these bears that were kind of, I don't know why, and they were kind of, they're in fur coats, or they're smoking pipes. Like my brother was like, oh, that's our grandfather. Right? That, yeah, you're right. That's who that is. But they kept receding into the woods, and sometimes with back turned. So I think it is like, well, it's us, right? Or it's me thinking or reflecting, or whatever. So just these 10 pictures of bears came out, and I don't think I did a lot of like animal drawings before that. But then I'm like, oh, what do I do with these 10 pictures of these weird bears? And it just seemed like this feels like field journal, like observing these things that are observing us. And then like, oh, what do I do with that? And wrote 40 haiku for that, just kept coming that too. So I never intended to write that book, but since then, I think there's this way of drawing or sketching animals, especially like the woods or that kind of reflective space that people identify with, or that I can put myself in that space. So I don't know, I gotta think about that some more, but that's a good question. That has shown up more and more than. Okay, I'll take one more question, and that is it. No, I really appreciate you coming and listening and walking through that gallery. It was really came out of that, just walking and thinking, and then a friend of mine at lunch, Jeff Knit said, oh, you should put these illustrations and some writing together. And out of that, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go nuts on drawing for this book that I already had, that I didn't do illustrations for. I'm like, this is great in COVID. So if that's what came out of it, and that's why I
So if you could have people leave here today with one reflection, what would you like to see?
take a winter walk. I mean, don't be like, oh, it's the end of the day, it's too cold out. Go for walks to clear your head, to think, to pray, process things, and you'll come back with ideas and creative thoughts and solutions to problems, or people that are driving you crazy during COVID, maybe you can kind of work that out with God in that time. That's my advice to myself. So maybe it's helpful.
I like how you have the power to know that walking is healthy for
Yeah,
you.
right.
And it's good for your mind.
Yeah.
And reflection, just exactly what you said. But you've also created the opposite in your poems, the need for community.
Oh, yeah.
The need to, so I
Yeah.
like how you plan both of those, the
Yeah.
human nature of us.
Yeah.
We crave people, but yet we also have to allow ourselves to not always have to be with other
Yeah,
people to
right.
know ourselves.
Yeah, if I'm gonna love my neighbor, right, which is probably the goal for all of us, not everybody, but then I have to step out and remind myself that that's important, right? Or I gotta think through why I keep ruminating about somebody who said this or that to me. And to pray or to reflect or whatever. So I think, yeah, you need this kind of going out, coming back in. That's right. Yeah, that's a great. And I would say, like, if all my writing, it's like it has to do with reflection over the mystery of what this is that we're living, and God, and community. Like, how do I love my neighbor? So I think that's, yeah. Thanks for noticing that, because I think that's what's going on. So, thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, take a look at the other art here. If you haven't gone through the gallery, I hope you do. And big round of applause for the library people. I was telling my daughter who lives in North Carolina, library, she was telling me about something from the library at her, she is right now. Oh, it's the librarians who are the creative heroes again. And I think that's true in COVID and whatever, like just trying to do creative things, thoughtful things. So I'm really thankful for the library. Thanks. Thank you.
So much,
Yep.
Kyle. We have plenty of hot chocolate. If you guys want to take another sip. And I did record this Q&A as well. Let's see if we can post it up so you can send it to anyone that missed.